What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another Where Is. As always, I hope everyone is having an amazing day today. So, I wanted to come on here and talk about a case that actually happened back in 1983, but I just wanted to come on here and share it with you guys. So, without further ado, let's get into the case. So, today we will be discussing the disappearance of Tiahease Jackson. So Tiahease Tijuana Jackson was born on October 5th in 1972. She was from Staten Island, New York, and was just 10 years old when she disappeared. She lived with her mother, whose name is Gwendolyn Jackson, along with her three siblings. Now, they had been staying in an apartment in New York, but unfortunately, in 1983, they ended up having to move into a hotel because a fire had broke out at their apartment, which forced them to move into a hotel until they could get another place, which her family was planning on moving to the southern United States. So the hotel that the family was staying at was the Mariners Harbor Motel, which is located on Forest Avenue in Staten Island. So it was August 14th in 1983, and around 1:30 p.m., her mother, Gwendolyn, was in the hotel room taking a nap, and a resident that was staying at the hotel asked Tiahease if she could go to the local market for them and get them a box of chicken wings. Now, I know you're probably thinking, who is this resident and did they know Tiahease? But it's unknown as to if she knew who this person was, but nonetheless, Tiahease agreed to get the chicken wings for the resident. So, as her mother is sleeping, Tiahease heads to the supermarket, which was the Crown Supermarket that was located in the 900 block of Richmond Avenue. Now, Tiahease going to the store wasn't something unusual for her, as she would often go into the city with her sister and her friend to run errands. So, again, I'm sure she had no problem doing this for the resident, but hours had gone by and Tiahease hadn't returned to the hotel. Now, her mother had woken up from her nap around 4:30 p.m. and she noticed that Tiahease wasn't in the room, and immediately Gwendolyn began looking for her. She asked around to see if anyone had seen where she had gone, and once she discovered that Tiahease actually left the hotel hours ago, she immediately called the police. Now, of course, her mother was extremely worried because Tiahease had been gone for hours and hadn't returned, but Tiahease actually had a kidney disorder. She was diagnosed with Brice disease, as well as having high blood pressure, asthma, diabetes, and learning disabilities. And because of her kidney disorder, she required medication. So, again, this was another concern for her mother, knowing that eventually she would have needed her medication. So again, she called the police right away, and once the police got there, Gwendolyn told them that Tiahease was actually very street smart. You know, her mother instilled into her not to trust strangers and for her to be aware of her surroundings, which I'm so glad that her mother taught her this at a young age because it's never too early, I believe, to teach stranger danger. And again, she would run errands and she was very much aware of the dangers that could come with speaking to a stranger. So many people, along with investigators, kind of canceled out the factor that she possibly could have walked off with a stranger or gotten into the car with someone. So immediately, investigators began searching the area for Tiahease. Now, unfortunately, police weren't able to find anything that would lead to her whereabouts, and they actually started questioning her family and asked if her mother, along with her uncle, would take a polygraph test. Now, both her mother and her uncle passed the test, and investigators were pretty much stuck at this point in the investigation since they didn't find any evidence searching for Tiahease, and still to this day, the last place that she was reportedly seen was the supermarket. So, with no luck in the case, and with the family obviously not being involved, there was a man that became the prime suspect in her case, and that man's name is Andre Rand. Now, Andre had been reportedly living in a campsite he made at the Baron Hirsch Cemetery that was less than half a mile from the hotel they were staying at. Now, what makes him suspicious is residents as well as Tiahease's mother had actually noticed a man lurking around the hotel's parking lot. Now, her mother told the police about him, but she says that she doesn't believe that the police ever questioned him, but she says he fits the description of Andre. Now, you may have heard the name Andre Rand before. His real name is actually Frank Rushan, and he is a convicted kidnapper as well as a suspected serial killer. So, a little backstory on Andre. Again, his real name is Frank, and he was born on March 11th in 1944. In 1958, his father passed away when he was 14 years old, and his mother was placed in the Pilgrim Psychiatric Center in Brentwood, New York, and Andre and his sister would go visit her. Now, according to his sister, they were never really physically or sexually abused, so it's unclear as to why he would have developed these behaviors and actions. So he worked as a custodian in the mid 1960s at Willowbrook State School. Now, this school was for children who had disabilities, and it actually had closed down because of the conditions at the school as well as unorthodox medical practices. Now, once the school closed, Andre was obviously out of a job, and this is when the kidnappings began. So, the first known crime was when Andre reportedly picked up a group of 11 children from the YMCA in Staten Island. He picked them up in a school bus, got them some food, and drove them to the Newark Liberty International Airport in New Jersey. Now, luckily, none of the children were hurt during this, and police actually stopped him at the airport, and he was sentenced to 10 months in jail for unlawful imprisonment. Now, the second victim was Alice Pereira in 1972. She was 5 years old, and at the time, she was playing in her neighborhood when she just completely disappeared. Now, at this point, Andre had finished serving his 10-month sentence, so he would have been out at the time of her disappearance, but unfortunately, there wasn't enough evidence to convict him. Now, in 1981, Holly Ann Hughes went missing on July 15th. Holly was 7 years old, and at the time, she was going to the store with her friend to grab a bar of soap. Andre had reportedly been seen by witnesses pulling up to the girls in a Volkswagen, pulling Holly into the vehicle, and she has never been seen since. Now, we know in 1983, Tiahease had disappeared when she was asked to go get chicken wings from the supermarket and hasn't been seen since. But just a year after her disappearance, 21-year-old Hank Gaforio disappeared from Staten Island, New York, after not returning home one night. Now, witnesses reported seeing Hank the night of his disappearance with Andre at a diner, and he hasn't been seen since. Lastly, in 1987, 12-year-old Jennifer Swiger was reported missing on July 9th. She had Down syndrome and had went out to go for a walk, and she never returned home. Witnesses say that they saw Jennifer walking with Andre, and unfortunately, her body was found underground after searching 35 days for Jennifer. Now, where her body was found, Andre's campsite that he set up was very close to where they found Jennifer. So in 1988, Andre was charged with first degree kidnapping and first degree murder, but was only convicted of first degree kidnapping due to the jury not being able to reach a verdict on the murder charge. So Andre was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. He was also charged in 2004 for the kidnapping of Holly that happened in 1981, and he was sentenced to another 25 years to life in prison, which will run consecutive to his other sentence, which means he will be eligible for parole in 2037 when he's 93 years old. Now, as far as Andre, a lot of people believe that he possibly could have been involved in Satanism and that he possibly could have been working with someone else in these crimes, and that he was giving children to the people who lived in the underground tunnels. This was where homeless and mentally disabled people had been living. Now, I'm not sure about him giving the children to the people staying in the underground tunnels, but I definitely believe that he had help in committing these crimes. I mean, if we go back to Tiahease's case, who asked a random kid for chicken wings? Like, I believe that whoever asked her for that was definitely in on it, especially if it was an adult. Most of us are fully capable of going and getting our own chicken wings, but the fact that you ask a child to go to the store for you is just a little weird to me. But I definitely want to know what you guys think about this case. Again, Tiahease was only 10 years old at the time of her disappearance. She is African American with black hair and brown eyes and stood at 4 foot 8 inches and weighed around 90 pounds. She has a scar from a burn on her left wrist and elbow and a mole on her left cheek, and her left eye is lazy. At the time of her disappearance, she was wearing a dark blue ski jacket that had a white trim, a white ruffled blouse, blue jeans, blue plastic mesh shoes, a gold necklace that had a butterfly charm, a silver bangle on her left wrist, and two purple combs in her hair. If alive, Tiahease would be 49 years old, and there is a age progression picture of her. I truly hope that Tiahease is alive out there somewhere, but I just hope that we can bring awareness to her case so that we can get it solved and bring some peace to her family and her mother. If you have any information, you can contact the New York Police Department at 646-610-6914. Well, that is it for me today, you guys. Please stay safe, and I will see you in the next one.